Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. There's being a hypocrite, and then there's being a Democrat. It takes the concept of hypocrisy being a hypocrite to a whole other level. I mean, holy moly. The absolute lack of self-awareness, but honestly, it's not even necessarily self-awareness. They do it on purpose. They're aware of the hypocrisy, they just don't care. They're such political vultures that at the end of the day, words are just tools to manipulate to get what they want. It's the perfect recipe for dishonesty and hypocrisy, corruption. In other words, the perfect recipe for being a Democrat. You know, I spoke about this last month after they selected Hakeem Jeffries as Nancy Pelosi's successor, and of course people like Ted Lieu getting promotions as well. All you gotta do to climb the ranks in the Democrat establishment is be as dishonest, disingenuous, hyperbolic, hyperpartisan as possible. The person who most resembles the Adam Schiff model is the person who will succeed. And boy oh boy are we seeing that with Mr. Hakeem Jeffries. This guy is a freaking clown. I mean, Nancy Pelosi was bad, but to be honest, after one single day of being exposed to Hakeem Jeffries as the Democrat Party House leader, I'm questioning myself, was she this bad? I don't even know. This guy might be taking Democrat dishonesty and Democrat hypocrisy to a whole other level. A brand new height, if you even thought that that was possible. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so dealing with Nancy Pelosi over the last two Democrat-led houses has been something to say the least. It's been quite interesting. Well, it seems as though that tradition is gonna continue with dopey Hakeem Jeffries. First of all, when it comes to leadership material and just basic competence, I'm not really seeing it with this guy, but when it comes to honesty and integrity, well, that's where he really loses me. Take a look at Hakeem Jeffries' viral moment on the House floor.
House Democrats will always put American values over autocracy, benevolence over bigotry, the Constitution over the cult, democracy over demagogues, economic opportunity over extremism, freedom over fascism, governing over gaslighting, hopefulness over hatred, inclusion over isolation, justice over judicial overreach, knowledge over kangaroo courts, liberty over limitation, maturity over Mar-a-Lago, normalcy over negativity, opportunity over obstruction, people over politics, quality of life issues over QAnon, reason over racism, substance over slander, triumph over tyranny, understanding over ugliness, voting rights over voter suppression, working families over the well-connected, xenial over xenophobia, yes we can over you can't do it, and zealous representation over zero-sum confrontation. We will all...
Now this one's gonna get a big old yikes from me. Maze on Twitter had the best reaction in the comment section. Sounds like a drunk Obama. Totally succinct with a great comedic edge, but I'd really rather focus on the hypocrisy of it all. These dishonest Democrat goons, man, the way they're constantly projecting self-righteousness, moral superiority, as if they're so much better than you, and they're always using these words, these specific labels, but it's almost as if they don't even know the definition of half the words that they use. Of course, at the end of the day, it's more dishonest than that. It's what I was mentioning earlier in the intro. They view words as manipulative tools to gain power, because if you were being an honest Democrat, then you wouldn't be able to say pretty much 90% of what Hakeem Jeffries said. Let's first start off with the hypocrisy or the audacity to virtue signal on the issue of gaslighting. Now, what's the definition of gaslighting? To manipulate someone using psychological methods into questioning their own sanity or power of reasoning. It's an emotionally manipulative tactic used to make people question their own reality or their own sanity. Where the hell do Democrats get off virtue signaling on the issue of gaslighting? That is basically their modus operandi. All they ever do is emotionally manipulate using fear-mongering tactics in the most dishonest and disingenuous manner possible. Not to mention he then goes on to connect Republicans to QAnon. If anything, that's a form of political gaslighting. He's also virtue signaling about divisiveness and hatefulness as he attacks Republicans. Democrats want to talk about the issue of hate. Love not hate, they say. Love trumps hate, they say. Yet they're the most vile, antagonistic, hate-filled group in American politics. Their Twitter history basically says it all. He said, and I quote, "Hopefulness over hatred, coming from the party of hate. Inclusion over exclusion, coming from the Democrat Party that was just attacking Byron Donalds as being a racial prop of the GOP, coming from the Democrat Party that operates essentially like an ideological cult where you have to conform to their dogmatic belief or else you'll be shunned." Then he says, "Justice over judicial overreach. Justice, you say, coming from the party that launched several phony investigations that regularly presents falsified evidence under oath because they're so hell-bent on arresting Donald Trump and stopping his political endeavors, coming from the party of Adam Schiff and the rest of these clowns who have been caught colluding with big tech and federal agencies trying to ban, censor, and arrest journalists and political opponents, not to mention regular American citizens. You know, the party of the January 6th committee. I mean, you can't talk about judicial overreach without mentioning the January 6th committee or Merrick Garland's corrupt actions and corrupt investigations of the DOJ. Then the next words that he says are knowledge over kangaroo courts. You cannot say kangaroo courts without the January 6th insurrection panel. He says knowledge over kangaroo courts. Since when has the January 6th committee led by Democrats, or the 2 impeachment trials and several investigations against Donald Trump, ever been focused on knowledge or facts, as opposed to their kangaroo court tactics? It does not get any more dishonest than this. Everything that he's virtue signaling about is exactly what Democrats are most guilty of. They have thrown away any type of credibility, dignity, honesty in their attempts to destroy Donald Trump. I mean, speaking of gaslighting, they've been gaslighting the American public for the last 6 years, trying to make you question your own sanity with all of their fake news, trying to make you look and feel insane for supporting Donald Trump. If that's not gaslighting, then I don't know what is. It's a mass Democrat gaslighting campaign that has gone on for more than half of a decade at this point. You know, it sounds great on paper. It sounds great on surface level. I agree with everything that Hakeem Jeffries said, except for maybe the Mar-a-Lago statement and the whole voter suppression Democrat shtick. But at the end of the day, he doesn't actually mean it. He's just saying words. You know, I would love to see the Democrats actually practice what they preach. You're right. We should condemn your kangaroo courts. You are divisive. You are liars, propagandists, and gaslighters. Say what you will. Talk is cheap. Let's see action. You want unity. You want an end to the divisiveness. Well, then how about you stop virtue signaling and actually take action on what you're saying here? Of course, that's never going to happen. It's just manipulative rhetoric. It's all it ever is. The Democrat modus operandi is propaganda through fear. You can't be talking about division while some of the most high-profile House Democrats are doing media tours saying stuff like this. Eric Swalwell and other House Democrats fear potential mass shooting by QAnon Republican after removal of metal detectors. Some House Democrats are living in fear of a potential shooting after metal detectors were removed from the House of Representatives under the slim majority of Republicans. According to a new report, Ross Story spoke to multiple House Democrats lamenting the loss of magnetometers, which were originally installed after the January 6th Capitol riot, and expressing concern over their Republican colleagues. A lot of my Republican colleagues glorify violence and proudly display the firearms that they have in their offices. So it just makes me nervous that we could have a workplace violent event. Representative Eric Swalwell told Ross Story this week. They're not the most stable people. I mean, let's talk about propaganda, fear-mongering, divisiveness, hatred, gaslighting. Republicans endorse violence, they say, after Democrats endorsed violence throughout the summer of riots. Those extreme QAnon Republicans were unsafe around them. They're not the most stable people. Typical fear-mongering, typical gaslighting. Guess what, folks? There's actually never been a single recorded event of QAnon terrorism or violent event. I'm not a huge fan of the whole Q thing, but that's just a fact. I'd rather a 4chan conspiracy theorist than actual violent Antifa domestic terrorists or BLM BLM rioters who burnt cities down and who have committed various horrible atrocities over the last couple of years. I mean, I don't really need to say much else. You guys are smart enough to understand the deep level of hypocrisy and dishonesty here. I guess in conclusion, we'll just wrap up the video by going back to the initial point that I made at the start of the video in the intro. There's hypocrisy, there's dishonesty, and then there's the Democrats. That's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna get out of here, and of course I hope to see you on the next one.